Hey there, Bobby Kling from Your Online Genius here with today's Facebook Live, where we're continuing the theme week of course creation and legal issues related to course creation. Today we're going to be talking about an issue that's very important for course creators, and that is issues related to the terms of service, getting them what you need in them and what you need to do from a technical perspective. Now, before we do that, I want to talk about, remind you who I am. I'm Bobby Klink. I'm an online entrepreneur and intellectual property lawyer. And I started Your Online Genius after seeing frustration or being frustrated seeing how entrepreneurs would make mistakes early on in their business before they could justify hiring me or really anyone else as a lawyer one-on-one. And then seeing those mistakes they made that would have been obvious to a trained professional come back and blow up in their face later. It drove me nuts. It took me a while to figure out what to do, and then it hit me, hey, I should use online entrepreneurship and the same methods I was learning to just market my business and use those to help deliver this service to clients, or not clients, but to entrepreneurs. And so I created Your Online Genius to provide the resources that entrepreneurs need to do it themselves. And so there are free resources, this live, for example, I have checklists, cheat sheets, blog posts, etc. And I'm creating more. I'm building up the site. But there's that. There's also then paid resources. I have master classes for sometimes if you take a cheat sheet, there will be a deeper dive if you want it. I have some forms that I'm creating, and I'm creating kind of a signature course that will help be kind of a soup to nuts process for online entrepreneurs. But in the meantime, I want to provide value to you and give you this information. So that's who I am. That's what the business is. And again, we're in the middle of our theme week about course creators and the law and issues that course creators need to be thinking about. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And so let's dive in. Now, you probably, if you think about it and if you've thought about it, you have terms of service on your website. Everybody does. Or I shouldn't say everybody. Some people don't, but you should. But if you think about it, most of them are just buried on the bottom somewhere. There's a link. Nobody ever looks at those. But the fact is, those are important on your website, but especially if you have a course. If you have a course, unless you're going to get all of your students to physically sign a document, which you're not going to do if you're delivering it online, what you need to do is have the terms of service include all of the relevant provisions that apply to the course itself. And those then form the agreement between you and your students. I'm a big proponent of having written agreements. You need to have written agreements just generally for all your important agreements. And so if you have a course and you're selling a course for money and money is changing hands, you need to have terms of service that explain, hey, what are the basics of this? What's involved? What are limitations, etc. So let's talk about some of the things that you need to have in your terms of service that say if you have a website terms of service you wouldn't normally have, but you need to include if you are a course creator. Now, one of the things is, and this depends on if you use it, but most courses that I know have a money-back guarantee. Again, I think most people realize that very few people are going to request their money back. And quite honestly, someone, in most cases, someone who is going to request their money back is someone who probably wouldn't have taken your course if you didn't have the guarantee anyway. So, it's something that people have out there to show, hey, we believe in our course, we're providing value, and so we're going to give you a money back guarantee. Well, a lot of people may just slap that on their landing page. If you're using ClickFunnels or Lead Pages or whatever you're using to sell your course, you might slap that badge and the guarantee on there. But the problem is you need somewhere where you actually set out what are the specifics of that guarantee. And is it, are there requirements? Do they have to do things? And what is it that governs that guarantee? And that you would almost always just put in your terms of service, because where else are you going to put it? You're not going to put it probably on the page itself, but if you put it in the terms of service, that's where you can put it. So for example, I've seen some terms of service that say, hey, we guarantee that if you follow the advice, you're going to get good results. But so to actually claim it, you have to actually show them that you've done the work. You have to show that you've gone through the process, and that's in the terms of service. But other things you might put in there, for example, if you were giving out forms as part of your course, you probably want to say, hey, look, if you demand your money back, you have to destroy all those forms. Can you force them to do it? No, but at least from a matter of contract, they would be required to if you have that in your terms of service. So that should be in there too. You also need to put in, what do they have to do? How do they contact you? If there's a specific way they have to do it. If they have to send an email to a specific email address, for example, that should be in your terms of service. Now, again, the point here isn't to make it impossible for someone to claim the money back guarantee. The point is simply to set out the rules and say, here are what the rules are for the money back guarantee. If you follow these, you'll get your money back. So that's what you ought to put in there from a money back guarantee. There's a separate issue that is if you have payment plans or if you have a continuity program as part of your course especially, you need the terms of service to explain the process of the continuity program and how they can cancel. Again, this is kind of like the money back guarantee, but slightly different. You know, if you just have a payment plan, for example, you need to have something in there that explains, you know, that you can't make the first payment and then not make the other payments. For example, let's say you had a 30-day money back guarantee and the first payment is going to be on day 1 and the second payment is going to be on day 31. Well, you need to have something in there that they're not allowed to just not make the future payments or cancel the future payments if they didn't claim the money back guarantee under the 30-day rule. So that's one issue that you need to have in there. But also, if you have an ongoing continuity program that you're offering, certain states have rules that require, laws that require you to make clear how someone can cancel that. And I don't know about you, I've dealt with this many times where it's almost impossible to figure out how do I cancel a service, you know, because people have tried to make it impossible. And I don't think that's not right from my perspective, but more importantly, from a legal perspective, you need to have an explanation of how they can cancel in your terms of service so that they know what to do. And again, it could just be, hey, you know, if you want to cancel, you need to email this, you know, email address, and we will cancel your next bill or whatever your policy is, put it in the terms of service. Now, the last issue I want to talk about that you should include in your terms of service is any limitations on the use of the information you're going to give them. And what do I mean by that? Well, one example might be, and I've seen this, and you have to decide on this if you want to put this limitation. I've seen, for example, a coaching program where, and it's kind of a personal development coaching program, but one of the requirements is that, you know, one of the limitations is you can't take it if you're a coach. The person obviously doesn't want other coaches coming in, taking taking the class and then going out and competing. So they have that limitation. Again, if you want a limitation like that on your course on who can take it, you put that in the terms of service. Again, it may be hard to enforce, it may be difficult, but if you want any kind of those limitations, you need to put them in your terms of service because, like I said, that's the contract. That is what you do. Another example, though, of a limitation is, let's say you have a program that is designed for, helping a business do something, right? You might say, hey, you know, you can use this for a single business or your business, but you can't then sell the information to anyone else. That is a common limitation that would make sense, right? So, for example, in my signature course, I am going to offer a lot of template form contracts that people can use. As you can imagine, I will have a provision in my terms of service that say, hey, you can't sell those or give them to anyone else. You can use them for you and your business, but you can't then take those and sell those to anyone else or provide them to any third parties. Because again, you know, I'm giving entrepreneurs what they need, not, you know, giving them a business they can go and sell. So that's, you know, a limitation that you'd put in there. Now, so that's kind of the big limitation. One other thing to think about is if you are in an industry where you want to make clear that, well, and let me make this generally, you should have in your terms of service that by signing up for your course, if all they're doing is signing up for their course, they are not becoming a client. They are not getting advice from you, for example. They are getting education. And again, this will be most relevant if you are in particular fields. So if you're in the financial field, for example, you want to make sure that, you're not creating, make clear that there's no fiduciary relationship. If you don't know what that means, don't worry about it. If that applies to you, you'll understand immediately. If you're a lawyer like me in these courses, you need to say, look, I'm providing educational information. We're not creating an attorney-client relationship. So you just need to make that clear so there's no discussion or no confusion about that issue. So that's something else you put in your terms of service. Now, so we've talked about what to include in your terms of service. But again, what I would say is if there's some other element of your agreement, something you want your clients or students to agree to, it goes in the terms of service. So put it in there. Now, the next issue is that you need to get the students to click a box, check a box saying they agree to the terms of service. You've probably seen this on some purchases and not in others. And the reason for this is, we all of us on the internet have this, neat little trick. We write terms of service and we put on our website and we have a provision in the terms of service, which of course no one ever looks at, that says, oh, hey, by using my website, you're agreeing to these terms. And as you can imagine, courts have kind of said, hey, come on, we're not going to enforce those. And they're not going to enforce those because the problem is what you're trying to say is there's an implied contract. And how can you imply an agreement where the person never even saw the statement that there is an implied agreement? So courts don't favor that. So if you want to make sure that these are enforceable, you need to get the person to affirmatively click on it. Now, you've obviously seen this with software, but what you need to do is you need to have a checkbox on your purchase that says, that they agree to your terms of service, and that terms of service should be linked into your terms of service so that they can see it and they can look at it if they want. If you do that, that's called a click wrap agreement, and that will generally be enforceable. So that's what you need to do to make sure that your terms of service are actually enforceable, because no one's going to sign it, right? So you get the signature equivalent by clicking the box next to it. So that is what you need to do from a technical perspective. Again, I'm not a coder. I can't tell you how to do the coding piece. It's pretty simple to put in that checkbox, obviously, with the statement and a link. So that's what you need to do. That's kind of it for terms of service. The important points for you to take away from this are, number one, you got to have terms of service because those are the contract terms. That's the agreement. That's what defines your agreement with your students. So you need to have those in place, and any important terms need to be defined in there. And so again, the important terms we talked about are any money-back guarantee, anything about continuity or payment plans, and any limitations you want to put on the use of the information, or any limitations on the relationship where you're saying, hey, we're not creating this kind of relationship. All of that should be spelled out in your terms of service, in addition to your basic website terms of service, which you also need to have, obviously. But so you need to have that in there, and you need to get them to check a box saying they agree to those when they buy the course. So if you do that, you'll be in good shape. That's it for today. Tomorrow we'll be back. I'm going to be talking about, so an important element about getting some agreements in writing in the process of creating your course to make sure that you own everything. So we'll be talking about that tomorrow. Until then, what I would say, if you're enjoying these lessons, if you're finding them valuable and getting some good information, I would commend you to go ahead and download a free cheat sheet that I've got available. It's a cheat sheet that addresses 4 mistakes that online entrepreneurs make pretty frequently that can doom their business. And you can get that for free at mistakes.youronlinegenius.com. Again, mistakes.youronlinegenius.com. The cheat sheet walks you through those 4 mistakes. And these are mistakes that I see in lots of different areas of business. They would apply to course creation, but they're also going to apply to your blog. They're going to apply to your website. They're going to apply to a lot of different areas in your business. And you can get your hands on that absolutely free by going to mistakes.youronlinegenius.com. That's it for today. I'll be back tomorrow to wrap up Course Creation Week. Until then, I hope you have a great day.